My name is Dr. Thani Malhotra. I'm a board-certified obstetrician-gynecologist and maternal-fetal medicine specialist. 51 years ago, the Supreme Court recognized that decisions about abortion belong to a patient and her doctor. Dobbs took that right away, and it has made pregnancy more unsafe than it has been in 5 decades. It has forced physicians to violate the oath we took to put our patients first. I live in Ohio, where just hours after Dobbs, abortion was banned at 6 weeks. Following that, I took care of a patient whose water broke at 20 weeks, and she had a 0 chance of fetal survival. Instead of intervening immediately, as I was trained to do, Ohio's abortion ban required me to wait. I had to ask her to sign mandated forms and wait 24 hours to provide care unless her life was at risk. Instead of only worrying about my patient, I now had to worry about the law, having to choose between my patients. Dobbs took away the right to make deeply personal decisions and gave it to politicians who have never had to sit with a patient and share in the worst moments of their lives. Thanks to the hard work of physicians, women, and advocates, Ohioans passed an amendment to constitutionally protect reproductive rights. It was a victory and a relief for the patients that I serve. We need women across the country, no matter what state they live in, to have that right. President Biden and Vice President Harris are working every day to restore that right, and I'm grateful to them. It is my honor to be here today and introduce a true champion for women across the country, President Joe Biden.
Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate it. Well, good afternoon, folks. Doctor, thank you for sharing your story, and I'm sure there's others like it. Many doctors across America have had to contemplate. 51 years ago today, in Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court recognized a woman's constitutional right to choose. Constitutional right to choose. The right to make a deeply personal decision with her doctor, free from the interference of politicians. I believe Roe v. Wade was right. I'm not supporting, they didn't support abortion on demand. It was Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade was the decision. And a majority of Americans agreed. But then, a year and a half ago, this Supreme Court made an extreme decision overturning Roe with their Dobbs decision to rip away a constitutional right from the American people, which had never been done before, a fundamental right ripped away, important to so many Americans. A right that is vital to a country founded on the idea of freedom. I said on that day that Roe was overturned. The health and lives of women in this nation would now be at risk, and that has unfortunately proven to be true. They've been at risk. It made them at risk, put them at risk. Today, in 2024, in America, women are turned away from emergency rooms, forced to travel hundreds of miles to get basic health care in another state that may have a different rule, forced to go to court to plead for help. Thanks to the mothers of two in Texas, a mother of two in Texas who was pregnant with her 3rd child. From her doctor, she received the news that no one wants to hear. The life of the child and her own life were at risk if she continued her pregnancy. But instead of being able to receive care from her doctor, she was blocked by the state of Texas Attorney General and the state Supreme Court. Think about that. As she and her family were going through the frightening, heartbreaking ordeal, she had to fight extreme politicians in the court. They turned a deeply private and painful matter into a public matter. She ultimately had to leave the state to get the help she needed to protect herself and her ability to have more children in the future. The cruelty is astounding. An affront to a woman's dignity being told by extreme politicians to wait, to get sicker and sicker, to the point where her life may be in danger before you can get the care you need. That cruel reality is a result of extreme Republicans who for years have made it their mission to end the Roe v. Wade decision. Since Roe was overturned in 21 states, abortion bans are now in effect, many with no exception for rape or incest. We have doctors with us today who are on the front lines of this crisis, and they can attest to the consequences that these extreme laws are having on doctors and on their ability to care for their patients. Some doctors are fleeing their home states because the laws that would send them to prison for providing evidence-based health care. In states like Texas, doctors can get a life sentence for providing the care they were trained to provide. It's outrageous. It's simply outrageous. And frankly, this is just the beginning. My congressional Republican friends are going even further. Further extremes undermine a woman's right to threatening the lives of women. 3 different Republican members in the United States Congress have proposed 3 different additional national bans to criminalize health care in every state. Let me tell you what they are. One is a 0-week ban with absolutely no exceptions. A 0-week ban with absolutely no exceptions. The second is a 6-week ban. The penalty for violating it is jail. The third is a 15-week ban. The penalty is a 5-year prison sentence. That means even if you live in a state where the extremist Republicans are not running the show, your right to choose, your right to privacy would still be at risk if this law was passed, any of these were passed nationally. And the extreme right is trying to limit all women in America from getting safe and effective medication approved by the Federal Drug Administration over 20 years ago, based on the FDA's independent expert judgment. They're trying to block women from getting this medication, even in states where abortion is legal. And on top of all of that, if you live in a state where you cannot get this care you need, and you make a plan to travel into a state where you can get the medicine, Republicans officials are trying to stop that as well. And get this, in Alabama, my mother would say, God love them, the Attorney General is threatening to prosecute people who help family members travel to another state. Folks, this is what it looks like when the right to privacy is under attack. These extreme laws have no place in the United States of America. You know, the American people know these laws are wrong. The vast majority of Americans believe the right to choose is fundamental. Since the court overturned Roe v. Wade, every single time abortion has been on the ballot. And by the way, a lot of people don't really understand. The court said that it's up to the states to decide whether or not abortions are valid. So it says that if the state comes along and wants to say, no, it's valid in my state, Roe v. Wade is valid in my state, it's allowed. Well, guess what? Every single time that decision was put before the people of the state on the ballot in Ohio, Kansas, Michigan, Kentucky, voters have voted to protect reproductive rights. And we need these protections in every state because your family to have access to health care should not depend on your zip code. It should not depend on your zip code. As I made clear, we have to do what the Supreme Court decision in Dobbs would allow, and that is Congress must codify Roe v. Wade for all the states in America. Stop playing politics of the women's lives and freedom. Let doctors do their job. Let me say it again. Pass laws restoring the protection of Roe v. Wade for women in every state. That's what can be done under this, even under the Dobbs decision. But under this court, that is going to be constitutional if we pass it nationwide. That's what I'm working for. I'm working for that law. And when they send me that law, I'm going to sign it immediately and restore that right. Until then, my administration is going to keep working to protect women in the wake of the Supreme Court's extreme decision. That's why I created a task force to ensure we're doing everything we can to support women. I've signed executive orders, and my administration has taken action to ensure that women get the care they need in medical emergencies, to protect a woman's right to travel, to get health care, to protect a woman's right to receive health care free from discrimination, and to protect her privacy. The idea that a woman should have to carry a fetus after she has been raped or victim of incest. It's just, I think it's just cruel. To me, it's outrageous. The idea of a woman who receives competent medical advice that the fetus she's carrying wouldn't live and will impact on her ability to have children in the future and still gets medical care, can't get medical care, it's ridiculous. I could go on, but I'm already taking too much time. I want to thank the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, for her leadership in this important issue as she travels the country in her fight for freedom. I'd also like to thank the Gender Policy Advisor, my Gender Policy Advisor, Jen Klein. Jen, where's Jen sitting? There you are, Jen. Thank you. And Secretary Becerra, sitting right next to her, for their leadership in this task force. And I want to thank all the members of my cabinet here today, including the Attorney General, for leading efforts at the Department of Justice to protect reproductive rights in court. And Secretary McDonough for leading the important work being done at the VA. I know the folks across America are worried about what they're seeing happening to women all across America. I hear about it everywhere I go. My message is we're fighting hard to reinstate your rights and the rights to protect women and families and doctors who care for those women. And we need the American people to keep making their voices heard. So congressional Republicans finally get the message that these laws do not represent the United States of America. Your voice will have a final say. This is not over. With that, I'm going to sit down and we're going to get to work. Thank you all for being here, and let's get this done. It's important. Thank you.
Everyone please come this way to close session, so I begin the meeting. Please move this way. Follow your way out. Thank you, everybody, so much.